Good. I want to call to order the July 25th Lititz Borough Council meeting. Welcome. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the mayor to get started.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce Curtis Zimmerman from TNT Youth Ministry, who's from the Warwick Ministerium, that's going to give us our invocation for this evening.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I live in Lititz, so this is cool. I've never actually been to one of these. I need to, I guess, come to them a little more often. So anyway, yeah, I'd love to just pray and kind of start the meeting. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, we love you. We thank you, Lord, that you are part of this community. We thank you, Lord, that you've given us direction and discernment on how to lead and lead well. I pray, Lord, for unity in this meeting right now, for everyone here. Pray, Lord, that there would be a sense of unity that would take place. Pray, Lord, that the stewardship that needs to take place in these meetings would happen in order to care for the people that live in this community of Lititz. Pray, Lord, that there would be a sense of honoring you in the decision making. I pray, Lord, that there wouldn't be any kind of selfishness or self-centeredness, but Lord, that there would be a looking for each other's neighbors in the sense of just continuing to glorify you. Pray, Lord, for Mayor Snyder as he continues to just lead this community well. Pray, Lord, that you give him wisdom and discernment as he leads. Lord, give him just favor in the conversations, the meetings that he has. Thank you, Lord, for so many volunteers that are in this room that would be willing to give up their time to just continue to serve in this capacity. Pray, Lord, that this would be an area in our community that would be just honoring of you and what you do. So thank you, Lord, for just the people in this room. I pray, Lord, that there would be a sense of just glorifying of your name, even in the midst of a business meeting, that your name would be honored in our thoughts and our actions and how we convey everything. Pray, Lord, that your name, Jesus Christ, would be lifted on high today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Curtis. Could we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God.
All right, first order of business this evening is approval of the June 27 minutes.
I move to approve the council meeting minutes dated June 27th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4 presentations this evening. The first one is the Warwick School District is here to request land development modification. So whoever's here for them can come forward.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Huxta from ELA Group. I'm here on behalf of the school district. The school district is asking for a modification of Section 303 land development planning for this project. And what they're planning to do is construct 2 small building additions on the southwest side of the building in the gym area next to the student parking lot. The first building addition will be approximately 435 square feet in size for an athletic director's office. It's in a grass area and it's next to the existing entranceway. Yes. Oh, is that better for you? All right. And the second one is approximately 1,040 square foot building addition for an equipment storage area. It's in a little nook area between the 2 buildings or within the building. So it's on the north side of the gym area. They plan to replace stairs and walkways and have a ramp to access that storage area and replace two trees that are removed to make way for the athletic director's office. The impervious increase for this total project is 1,475 square feet, which represents 0.029 0.29% of the entire site. So it's very small increase. The parking will remain the same. There's no increased need for parking. The stormwater additions will be conveyed to existing underground facilities that were constructed as part of the stadium project. There's some existing pipes in the area that the roof leaders will go into and that already lead to that facility that is sized for and can handle this building increase. The stormwater management modification of the stormwater plan is being reviewed by PADEP. And that's to modify the active NPDS permit for this property that was created as part of the stadium project. The building additions will be brick to match the existing building materials and match the existing height. And the justification for this modification is that the minor building additions will be reviewed by the borough during the building permit review and inspected by the codes officials during construction. So the borough will have oversight of this project. The campus recently underwent the improvements for parking and stormwater controls that are able to accommodate the small increase in the impervious building area. And the additions are not due to an increase in student population or anything that will require additional seating capacity in the gymnasium or the parking areas. The 6 pages that we submitted are basically the entire project. So what we submitted and what you saw in our plans are everything that will be built. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Increased impervious is 1475. There's no additional disturbance area. You're not getting to a point of having to file an NPDS or anything like that.
No, not at all. Basically, the disturbed area would be for the buildings and then to run the new pipes connections.
Any other questions from council? I mean, it's a minor in the scope of all the things that have been going on out there over the last couple of years here.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve request for modification of section 303 improvements at works.
Second.
The motion and a second, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed, motion carries.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. All right. So we're moving on to 1B Eagle Building Land Development Plan.
Yes. So the owners of the property aren't able to make it tonight. But what they're proposing to do, they own this property and they own Eagle Building Solutions. So they're intending to build this and develop this site so they can move their existing business to this property. The existing site is about 1.6 acres in the neighborhood storefront district. It's located on the northeast corner of Main Street and North Oak Street. Just to orient everybody to this site, you may have seen this. I think we submitted it as a sketch plan last year, you may have saw. So Garmin Builders is across North Oak Street and Luther Acres is across on the south side of Main Street. The site is vacant with the exception of a neighboring garage and access drive that is over the property line, and that will remain in an easement so the neighbors can continue to use that garage and access from Main Street. This site contains a large unusable area in the floodplain. So out of the 1.6 acres, approximately 0.67 acres is in the floodplain and can't be developed. The proposed site, the owners intend to construct a 2-story building facing Main Street with commercial spaces on the bottom floor and 2 apartment buildings on the second floor. Access to the site will be from Oak Street, and the location of the access drive is determined by the distance from the intersection, which is about 150 feet. Parking for the mixed-use building will be behind the building and has approximately 12 spaces. The second building that they're proposing is to be used to move their established business to. And this will be facing North Oak Street. The front part of the building is a 2-story office building, and the back part of the building is the equipment storage area that will be 2 stories in height to match the building, but will be only 1 level on the ground floor. There will be a fenced area behind the building to secure their vehicles, trailer parking, but no materials will be stored in that fenced-in area. In that fenced area, there is a large retaining wall, a long retaining wall. It's only about 4 feet height, maybe 5 to 6 feet. The plan for the retaining wall is still being developed, but the retaining wall is needed to keep the grading out of the floodplain. For this part of the project, 23 parking spaces are required. I'm sorry, for the overall site, 23 parking spaces are required, and we are providing 28, which also accommodates the fenced-in area for the business vehicles and trailer parking. The stormwater for the project will be underground in the fenced-in area. We were also requested to provide a bus stop, and a bus stop is being provided north of the office building along North Oak Street. Site development is restricted, again, because of the floodplain requirement and the retaining walls being used. So when we looked at this approximately a year ago, we had to get zoning approval for parking within the 10-foot buffer requirement and for the shop use. And for this project, we're requesting 11 modifications from the Saldo. And mainly that's because a lot of these are for the site being constrained, but with the floodplain, and 3 stormwater modifications. And they're basically based on the site geology and the different stormwater methodology that we are using, which is also an approved methodology from PADEP, but just does not meet the ordinance requirement. And that's basically an overview of the project. Are there any questions?
I know one of the requests made was for a traffic impact study. What kind of traffic volume do they generate just with the business?
Oh, so the traffic impact study. Basically, the requirement is building area that's 10,000 square feet and over requires a full traffic impact study. And we're at, I think it was 10,020 square feet. So we're just over that requirement. And a lot of that area is the shop area that's not office or retail or any of that.
Mhm.
So that's basically the requirement why we're asking for that modification.
Yeah, I was just curious, like what kind of volume do they actually even generate? Like it doesn't sound like there's a lot of movement in and out of the property that's going to happen on a daily basis.
Right. Actually, I have that in the letter, I believe, but I'll have to go back and find that.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. But given the use of, the use for the buildings, it didn't seem like, I'm familiar with their other locations. It just doesn't seem like there's a ton of activity.
Yeah, we're correct. There is not a lot of traffic that will be going through here, but
Or so.
Yeah. And that's even hopefully somewhat walkable. for Some people, yeah.
yeah, I just don't have those numbers with me tonight.
I mean, I'll share with the group. I mean, I've been following this. This has been well over a year, I think, when you guys first started.
Right, correct.
In the fall, they've worked closely with Elijah and the Planning Commission on some requests. The initial design was a little off from the intention of the form-based code within this region. The NSD was something created 50 plus years ago for the form-based code and tried to create this sense of scale with the 2-story building pulled forward, sidewalk. So that was, I know the applicant worked closely with Elijah and the Planning Commission to get closer to the vision of that zoning area.
Right, that's correct. We tried to meet every request that the Planning Commission had when it was reviewed as a sketch plan, and everything that Elijah pointed out in the ordinance, we revised the plan to accommodate.
Yeah, and pushing the parking behind the building. That's not the first.
Any other questions from council?
I'd like make a motion that we approve the preliminary final land development for 601 Main Street, Eagle Building Solutions. Like to just reference based on the conditions stated in David Miller Associates letter dated June 28th and the staff letter dated.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed, motion carries.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mike. I know you're not here for the next one, so. All right, item 1C is PFM advisors here for our bond RFP process, and Jamie Schlesinger is here with us. And the rest of.
The rest of the group is here. We'll all leave after this, so you'll have a lot more room after this.
All right.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's good to see everyone. Obviously, we brought a few extra people here, so I'll introduce a few of the team here. We have a couple members from PFM who were last time, Garrett Moore and Pat Doherty. Chris Hoffert from Stiefel, who is going to serve as underwriter on the transaction. Their job will be to find, their job will be to find the investors once we price the bonds next week. And then Dan, as you probably know, from Barley Snyder, will serve as bond counsel on the transaction as well. So tonight is the big night. That's why we're all here. We're asking you to consider the bond ordinance. It is called a parameters ordinance, which we've described in the past as a concept of allowing us to move forward with the public bond sale in about a week. That will allow us to go through and find investors for the approximately $3.5 million worth of projects. What's important here is because this is called a parameters ordinance, what we're doing is we're establishing maximum amounts and maximum terms and maximum interest rates. So all these things look a little odd when you see them, as in I just said $3.5 million, and we're asking you to consider a $5 million issuance. The rationale behind that is because of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's rules on how we file and issue debt. This gives the finance team the flexibility to adjust things when we actually go to price the market. So conceivably, we may have some couponing that may change a little bit. We may have some principal payments that may adjust a little bit. And we want to have enough room to make those changes once we go to market, with the understanding that it'll look very, very similar to a few of the pages we're going to talk about here. But because we're not physically going to the market until a week, we have extreme examples of the things that could happen, even though they won't. So that's the rationale behind it, with the understanding that it looks something similar when I kind of get to that page. A second important fact here is we did go through the rating process, which is always a good idea to show you and how you can hear how the borough is done. There has not been a public bond rating since the last time the borough issued debt back in 2010. When we refinanced the 2010 bonds with a bank loan, that rating disappeared. So we went through a formal process where Standard & Poor's asked the staff as well as us several questions about the demographics, financial history, and the future of the borough. And we weren't surprised by this, but they were obviously very impressed. We received a AA credit rating by Standard & Poor's. So in relation to how the world works, the best you can be is AAA, and then you can be a AA plus, and then you can be AA. So being in the AA category is a significantly high credit rating. So that should help us issue the bonds and find strong investors. So kudos to the borough, the staff for that rating. A couple highlights, of course, are you have good, diverse taxpayers, stable financial conditions, strong fund balances, and future economic growth, in certain spots. So those things are always, very good to talk about. It was a nice conversation. And again, coming back with a AA credit rating is very strong. Going forward, there'll be a little bit of work as we'll talk about, but as long as you kind of maintain what you're doing, we expect the credit rating to stay within this range. I'm going to touch on a couple of highlights here on the numbers and just kind of what we're expecting here. The market's been relatively stable, although we're expecting the Fed to raise rates, and that's already kind of built into the numbers. Most investors believe that that's going to happen. It may be the last time, who knows? But the investors are already kind of expecting this. So we believe that the overall interest rate will be under 4%. Probably be hopefully in the kind of between 3.6 and 3.75 range as a yield, which is very strong right now. again, obviously their job will find those proper investors. Hopefully we'll find those and we'll be able to kind of reduce the interest rate overall. A couple of things that have happened since, I was last year. I know we had some other members here talking about things, but we did finalize, and then tonight I think we're having one of the documents signed, that modification of the existing loan. So that's been done. So you have about a $3 million balance on that loan. And then the balance of this transaction will be used to fund the two projects. One thing that's important here is we're going to build into the transaction some flexibility to pay down principal earlier with the use of the grant funding as it comes in. So we'll have that flexibility to kind of do it over the course of time, which is good news too, which of course will avoid some of the interest expense associated with the transaction. So
Quickly, would you want that to happen?
It'll be established as part of the transaction itself. Obviously, the process by which the project occurs and when you kind of get reimbursed and receive the money, you can kind of do it in spurts. So I have some clients that have built these in, and it's years before they actually go and pay down debt because they don't receive the money in time. But again, if you do receive, large chunks of money, we can do it as quickly as, the day after pricing. That's not ideal, of course, but that could happen as quickly as that. So again, the quicker you get the money, the quicker we use it, the lower the interest expense you'll pay. A couple other things to point out. Again, as I mentioned, this will be a $5 million ordinance, final maturity in 2040. That's not an extension of the original thoughts. The max interest rates of 6%. That's the couponing structure. Again, the overall cost we think will be kind of in that 3.6 to 3.8% range, give or take. I think, generally speaking, I think I hit much of the high notes for today. I know you've seen these numbers a number of times. I would, really just point to, trying to get there, I apologize. The summary page, it shows what the numbers are going to look like. That's on page 5. So if you look at that blue section, we believe the annual payments will look similar to column 4. So the principal in this should be paid back. Interest is paid twice a year. Principal is paid once a year. The annual payments will allow the general fund to look essentially level overall. So from a budgetary standpoint, you would budget starting in 2024 about $520,000. We think it'll be a little lower. And again, as the funding comes in on the grant side, that amount will be reduced. But that is kind of if nothing happens, we expect it to look something similar to that. More than likely, the debt that would be paid off would be kind of the back end. So it would be much shorter overall, but that is the expectation at this point for the structure. A couple other things. Once we price the bonds, which will be next week, we will settle on the transaction on September 6th. The day we price the bonds, rates are locked in. So there is no, risk of rates changing between the time you lock in until you settle. So we will know when the funds will come in, but we'll have the money locked in at that point in time. I don't have anything else unless you have any questions. Certainly, Chris, if you want to ask him questions about the structuring or some of the ways they'll market the bonds, he's happy to talk about it. But we have an ordinance that Dan can talk about. There's certain rules that we have to follow to meet the standards of DCD, which you've all dealt with. Some of you dealt with before, and the proper advertising has been done. And once the approvals occur, we'll get the formal approval by the Commonwealth to allow us to settle on the transaction.
Question. Who are the likely buyers of these bonds?
So given your strong credit rating with the AA, that makes our job a lot easier. So we use that rating report that Jamie alluded to, along with what we call a preliminary official statement, which is essentially the prospectus on the securities. So that describes the borough, talks about the projects, shows trends in the borough's financial history. Rob and your staff worked very hard in getting that information to Jamie and his staff to put that document together. So we use those two documents to market the bonds. We expect institutional investors, insurance companies, separately managed accounts, and then we also expect some retail interest. And so what I mean by retail is, what we call mom and pop retail, where there's individuals that would be interested in purchasing the bonds. My firm, while headquartered in St. Louis, I sit in Lancaster. And so we have wealth advisors in our Lancaster office that are going to be marking this issue, as well as our other 21 offices across the Commonwealth to retail investors. So I do expect some segment of the bonds to go that way, and it could be borough residents, for instance. Their clients are all over the state, and so folks that know the borough, know the name, it's kind of an easy sell. That's normally not what drives the bus in terms of interest rates. It's normally the larger institutional investors. But it always helps too, especially to have folks in the community invested in the projects that the borough is undertaking. And after the completion of the pricing next week, we'll be providing what we call a summary of sale to PFM and to the borough. And that'll show a breakdown of all the investors and what type of investors they are and what maturities that they subscribe for. And I think that's always interesting to see who, where the bonds actually end up, who investors are going to be holding those bonds going forward.
Any other questions? So the next step, unless there's any questions on the legal side, we'd ask you to call the ordinance as you always would. In this case, we'd ask for a roll call on the yes or no, yay or nay. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. All right, so we do have, we have the ordinance down there under 2A, but we can take care of that. Like,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number C612,
It's 611.
611 for the general obligation bond series 2023. Second.
motion and a second. Elijah, will you take a roll call vote?
Sure. Are you voting on this or you?
I'll abstain.
Okay. Lee? Baker?
Yes.
Sensitive?
Yes.
Griner?
Yes.
Vogler?
Yes.
Great. Hey, thank you. Have a good evening. Stop next door.
Yeah.
Oh, you already did. All right.
Those pre-meeting.
All right, well,
Go have a great rest.
see ya.
Thank you.
And our final presentation this evening is Venture Lititz. They're receiving a Townie Award. Rebecca's here to share that with us.
So I'm relying on Rob to get the presentation up. But I thought now would be a good time to kind of just remind you all about the work that Venture Lititz does, so that both council and anyone listening, sometimes people think Venture Lititz, fire and ice, and it sort of ends there. So I thought tonight might be a nice time to explain what we work on day in and day out at Venture Lititz. Can you start it? There we go. Now hit present. You can head right to the next slide. So I thought I'd start with a video that explains what Main Street America does. Venture Lititz is actually nationally accredited through Main Street America. And what that means is we have to meet a lot of guidelines in order to receive that national accreditation. We have to work on certain things. We have to do a certain amount of volunteer hours. And so this video just sort of gives you an idea about the national movement that is Main Street America.
Streets are the heart of our communities. They're our nation's gathering places, places of shared memory, celebration, and economic activity. They represent the core American principles of ingenuity, inclusion, and creativity. Yet over the years, main streets have faced many challenges, from suburbanization to the deterioration of historic buildings to the changing face of retail. While these challenges are formidable, today's main streets are resilient through hard work, planning, commitment, and action by local volunteers and leaders. Main streets across America are thriving.
Main Street stands for a revitalized America.
Downtown is important because it's the heart and soul of any community. You don't have a healthy downtown, you simply don't have a healthy town.
Everybody knows what it's like from the public square. It's actually working and thriving. People are buying goods, they're walking back and forth. We all know what it's like to be in a community like that on a Saturday. The sun is shining and you just feel great about being in a ministry.
Main Street America is a nationwide movement with a proven track record of revitalizing older and historic downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts. The Main Street America network brings together thousands of passionate local leaders who contribute their time, energy, and ideas to building more vibrant and sustainable communities.
Entrepreneurs have been the backbone of America for 2 years. And I know that whether it's for this rural corner of the country to commercial district right in the heart of Chicago, there are men and women with desires to build business. What Main Street does, it helps to create the environment in which those businesses are a little bit easier to get up off the ground. And those businesses are more likely to succeed.
Main Streets are once again the incubators of small business and the launching pad of entrepreneurs. Great ideas are nurtured in communities that appreciate the value of local. The Main Street America network knows how to encourage these pioneering businesses and how to create the environment to help them prosper.
This is a time-tested, comprehensive, market-based, and community-led approach, which has been employed in over 2,000 communities over the last 40 years.
If you want to see America grow, you really want to see America grow, get Main Street. Being a part of a network like this, you get to share best practices across all kinds of markets. There may be plenty of areas that are different than yours, but somewhere out there, there's a market very, very similar. Study what they've done and you can learn.
Successful economic development today is not about what you don't have, it's about what you do have. And one of the things that Main Street has done is made people aware of what value of downtown historic buildings and how a small incremental approach to redevelopment can be the best approach. Too many communities for years thought economic development was all about the one big thing. But successful economic development is much more frequently about lots of small things working synergistically together off of a plan that makes sense. So Main Street at its core is about creating a plan for the future.
Today, people are seeking out communities with character and places where they feel connected. Main Street America downtowns and districts are places to raise families, start new businesses, build community, and forge the future.
So I think that does a pretty good job of sort of explaining the ethic behind Main Street America. And so Venture Lititz is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that follows the principles laid out by Main Street America. And we are sort of watched over by the Pennsylvania Downtown Center, who are in Harrisburg. I do a lot of training through them and go to statewide conferences where I get the benefit of meeting with other downtown managers and discussing what's working for them. And we share ideas. We're not afraid of stealing from one another. We sort of do that with a wink and a nod. And it's honestly been some of the best learning I've ever done is going to those conferences and talking to other towns. I will say it's super important to note we are lucky here. A lot of the Main Street managers that I talked to at the conference at the end of June, they're dealing with blighted buildings, they're dealing with a lot of litter, and they're dealing with a lot of empty spaces on their main streets. And we don't have those vacancy issues. So I think that's credit a lot to what you're doing. So we talk about the technical terms of Main Street, but Venture Lititz as a board and as a group, we really just love Lititz, to put it in the easiest of terms. And our job is to make sure that Lititz stays the special, amazing place that it is. And we're passionate about that. And so we work in tandem with a lot of you to make sure that continues to happen here in Lititz. So how did we get here? Venture Lititz formed more recently, but the work of Main Streets really have been being done here for a long time. And Lititz is extremely lucky. A lot of folks at conferences ask me, how can we become Lititz? And the truth is they need about 4 decades, of work in order to get to where we are today. And a lot of that is because of Lititz Improvement Group, who started in the late 70s. buying properties and improving them, and always with a mindset of what's best for Lititz. And so this is always a place where I think it's important to note that I've never sat in a meeting, whether it's with other nonprofit groups, civic organizations, borough staff, or borough council, where I haven't been able to trust that every single person at the table had Lititz's best interests at heart. We might not always agree on the path, but when you know that everybody at the table cares about Lititz, there's trust there. And I think I'll always tell other Main Street managers, I think that's sort of like the silver bullet and why Lititz is so special. There's not a lot of trust in other communities. And so I think that's something we should really celebrate about ourselves. But the Lititz Improvement Group, our borough staff, our police force who put up with our events and are amazing to us throughout the process, and other civic organizations that do amazing work here in the downtown. So the 4 points that Main Street makes us follow and that we're sort of measured by are economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. I'll go through them super quickly. Economic vitality is about attracting and retaining businesses. We work with the Pennsylvania Downtown Center to get research about what kind of money is coming into our town, what kind of money is leaving our town. So if we find out that apparel sales for folks that live in Lititz, all that money is leaving Lititz, when we know that we need to attract another business, we might look for apparel. That's not statistical information today, that's just an example, but we are privy to some very expensive research because of our membership with the Pennsylvania Downtown Center, and that can help us sort of understand who we'd want to attract if we did have a vacancy. We also work really hard on promoting the connection between a healthy business community and a healthy downtown. And we do have the Lititz Dollars program that we do ourselves, selling Lititz Dollars to folks, sort of like a gift certificate to downtown Lititz. So this is last year's number. We had sold over $250,000. So all that money gets spent in our downtown. Design, I think sometimes the name of this can be a little bit hard to understand, but essentially this is about designing the way we move through our downtown and what the experience feels like to people. So Venture Lititz is very passionate about playing up the assets that set us apart. We have a natural spring running through our town in a gorgeous park. That's something we want to play up. We also have historic structures. I think Corey from the Historic Foundation told me we have more historic structures than Colonial Williamsburg. So of a certain date. So we really have something special here that we want to preserve and play up. We also work with, borough council and borough staff to do things like make sure we have bicycle racks so that folks coming off the rail trail can park their bikes. We've worked together on the new parking meters. We're excited about the rail trail extending to Lititz Springs Park. One of the projects we love the most is something we work with Stray on, which is the Edison Bulb project. And that's just about creating an enchanting downtown experience during the winter months when things can feel cold and dark, making people feel welcome here. Promotion. Venture Lititz does a lot to make sure that we have a positive identity in the media. And I think we all know that we've been named America's coolest small town. I think we might be expiring our ability to continue claiming that, but we're still getting a lot of really great stories written about us. In fact, Fire and Ice was named one of the 7 best festivals in North America. So that's great. We also have an award-winning website. We launched a new website last year. We won the 2022 PDC Townie for that website. And that is really all about promoting our businesses so that people can see everything we have to offer and hopefully they spend some money downtown. We just launched the brand new Experience Lititz app, which I'm really excited about. That's free for anyone to download. The great thing is we don't always have the best Wi-Fi reception downtown. If you have a downloaded app, that doesn't matter. You can find anything you need. Cool thing, if you open up one of the shops that you want to go to and they're all organized by the kind of stuff the kind of products they offer, you click on that shop, a map shows up and it'll tell you how to walk there. So this new app really knows how to move people through the downtown and show them everything we have. We also partnered with Corey at the Historic Foundation to do a historic walking tour of Broad Street with some beautiful historic photographs. And that has an economic vitality sort of lean to it because we knew that not as many folks are walking up and down Broad Street to those retailers. So give them a historic walking tour that the hotel can really push and suddenly they're walking in and out of those stores. So those are little things that we can do to try to push economic development. We just won the 2023 PDC Townie Award. And these Townie Awards, these are statewide awards. We have over, I think, 200 member organizations in the Pennsylvania Downtown Center. So when you receive an award, it's a big deal. So we did win the Townie Award for creating our core values and the vision that ground our work. You can see the core values here. Really what this was about was saying, you know, Venture Lititz, executive directors might change, board members might change, but how do we make decisions based on what's best for Lititz and make sure that we're always using the same criteria to ground ourselves in what we're doing? So those core values really lead us when we're making our decisions. And obviously most important is that support as being community driven, support local business, being collaborative. Other communities have a hard time with wanting to take credit for things. That's just not important to us. The thing that's important to us is that we get things done for Lititz. And I think that everyone in town does a really good job of doing that. We want to be equitable and inclusive and make sure everyone feels safe and welcomed here. Preservation based, we have beautiful buildings, we want to keep them, but is there a way that we can apply adaptive reuse to make sure the uses of those really amazing buildings are fresh and new when people come to visit? And resilient and future focused, just constantly keeping our eye on what the trends are so that we can make sure we're ahead of those trends. And these are just products of Venture Lititz. We have the Facebook page, which I believe now has over 26,000 followers. We have Instagram, which is up above 20,000 now. We have a visitor's guide, which is getting reimagined into a magazine next year. We also have the monthly newsletter that goes out. So we're doing a lot of things on a daily basis to sing the praises of Lititz and to attract folks, not just far away visitors, but folks in Leola, Lancaster, so that when they have a special shopping day, they choose Lititz as their location. Finally, the events. So everyone knows that we do events, but what I want to say is this is how we support ourselves by and large. We couldn't be Venture Lititz doing all the things we do if we didn't have events to raise our funds. But we try to make the way that we raise our funds strategic. So Fire and Ice, yes, it's a fun winter festival, but Fire and Ice is designed to make sure our merchants make it through the winter months. Really, it's how they pay their rent throughout the cold weather months when not many people are thinking about walking on sidewalks and buying a bunch of things. Come out during the 10 days of Fire and Ice and you'll see a bunch of people on sidewalks buying things. So that's really, whenever we make a decision about planning that event, that's at the heart of it. What's going to help our merchants? Taste of Lititz is about celebrating everyone that works and lives here, and specifically the food that is made within our boundaries. And hopefully that makes people create new habits and come to our restaurants more often. Then we have the Venture Lititz Gala, which is great for networking, and the Apocalypse 5K, which is a family-friendly event that promotes health. And we have the farmers market, which I'm so proud of. And this is a great business incubator. So many of the merchants that are now favorites in our downtown began at the Lititz Farmers Market. We have Sugar Whipped, Ula Bowls. Those folks started at the farmers market and now they're successful businesses in the downtown. This is just showing everyone that we cooperate with, which I think we've touched on already. So we can just keep going. This one is really important. This is our volunteer base. And I just pulled the numbers. And in 2022, Venture Lititz volunteers logged 1,864 hours of community service. So that's just shy of 47 40-hour work weeks. So that's a real value that we're bringing to the downtown. And that comes with committee meetings where we're thinking strategically about attracting and retaining businesses. It also comes with event planning. And it comes with our downtown cleanup. At the PDC's rate of $28.54 an hour, that's $53,198 of value that we're able to give to the Borough of Lititz. This just shows the national numbers. If you wanted to visit Main Street America, you can see how the national movement is helping. And this was really born out of when things started moving to shopping malls and downtowns were being torn down. So you can see how Main Street America is gaining jobs, dollars reinvested in buildings. So it's a big movement that's having a really positive effect on our downtowns. This just shows the sponsors because we couldn't do everything that we do without the cooperation and enthusiasm from local businesses. The future, we want to engage a younger demographic, stay ahead of shopping and dining trends, preserve all of our beautiful assets, and welcome progress. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I think the next slide gives credit to all the awesome photographers in town. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Yeah, I mean, we try to interact there's been times when we have more conversation than not. When there's a building available, I'll slide some people their way. So that's when we tend to talk. We don't have many vacancies right now, so we're not talking as frequently as I think if we'd had more vacancies.
Any other questions? Well, congratulations to you and to the board and all the volunteers. Yeah, I'm not surprised that you got an award, and it's a nice position to be in. So thanks for all the hard work.
And thank you for your support. I mean, the cooperation in this town is really amazing.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Rebecca. And I just wanted to point out that your presentation is very timely because last week's Record Express headline above the fold, of course, but it's among a dozen of most adorable towns in PA. I mean, we keep Lititz is a fantastic community. Thanks to all of our got a bunch of the volunteers here tonight as well. So thank you all.
Okay, we did do the item A under our ordinances. So we do have a advertisement for an open burn ordinance amendment, which we discussed last month. That was an ancient ordinance. Elijah, how old was that? I kind of forget.
It's, I believe, early 70s. I don't have the exact date. We modified it slightly earlier this year for the PADEP, but that was just to basically do whatever they asked us to do.
Yep. Yeah, just a minor language change there. So this really broadens the ordinance and addresses all the different types of open burning and burning that you could do. So very comprehensive. I'm just curious if anyone has any questions before we look at advertising. Anyone in the audience, any questions on this ordinance? All right.
Okay, I'd like to move to advertise ordinance C-112, open burn amendment to better regulate the various forms of outdoor fires in the borough.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are done with ordinances. On to resolutions. Resolution number 975. This is related to our public comment procedures, which we had passed earlier this year in response to a question regarding item 1 under the comment procedures, just related to who is entitled to address council. We did take a look at this and wanted to make sure that we were giving anyone who has agency in the community the ability to address council or the right to address council. And so the way that it was worded had captured a lot of folks, but we did add some language here under item 1 to include business owners who maybe were not technically, if they didn't live here, they weren't residents, and if they didn't, maybe they owned the business but didn't take a salary, so then they wouldn't technically, they wouldn't pay the local services tax, so they kind of fall a little bit of a loophole there. So we added business owners in the borough and any representative of a nonprofit organization serving the borough. So we feel like this could really capture, we're capturing churches in that. I feel like this has given us the language we need to get there to give everybody the right to address council. Any question from council on this ordinance amendment? Questions from the public? Yep.
Dave Carson, 220 East 6th Street. I want to thank you for responding to my clarification from last meeting. My question is, how are you going to define a representative of a nonprofit? You could have people coming from the same nonprofit. I think it should be an officer or a director. as a further clarification? There's been discussion about that. You just said a representative. What does that mean?
Yeah, if there's someone here that belongs to a nonprofit, so, you know, a church, they attend church here, they have a community concern, they are a member of a civic club like the Rotary or Lions. I don't feel like we should restrict it to officers in those clubs. I mean, I think if you've been a member of a service club, you know that, you know, all the members are generally active in service to the community, not just the officers.
Okay, so you're going to state, you're going to ask them to state where they're from, what they're representing? And before they can make a comment?
Just like we would ask somebody to state their address, you know, for the record, and, you know, I mean, I guess that's as good as anyone being honest, you know?
Okay, well, I appreciate the clarification. I would ask that you, going forward, maybe monitor this a representative qualification, so it doesn't get out of hand. Because we could have everybody from the Lions Club. I'm just Lions Club. Don't get mad at me, any Lions Club members. Everybody from the Lions Club could come here. 50 people start to speak.
Yeah.
They could all live in Warwick Township. How do we know that to me is watering down the Lititz Borough residents? I don't want to see, my concern with everything that happens here is the Lititz Borough resident and the taxpayer. And I agree with our community of many, that's not Warwick Township and all that, but the concern is Lititz Borough. I don't want 50 people coming from Lititz, from the Lions Club that live in Warwick Township. And they get to speak, and that kind of waters down the concerns of actual Lititz Borough residents and taxpayers.
Yeah.
So if I would ask you to monitor that as we go forward, if this needs to be adjusted, then I do appreciate your clarification.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so the president will still have the ability to limit comment, repetitive comments. So, you know, if you had 20 people show up and they're saying the same thing over and over, you can.
So I would like to also maybe raise, I have 47 seconds, that I've been here speaking a few times. I've had people that have, when they spoke, they've pointed towards me, and I think that's a violation of this. So I would ask that you monitor that, speak to you, not to the group, not have any kind of gestures or sounds from people in the back of what they don't like to hear ahead of them. That's what I'd ask. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 975 for the public comment procedures update. Is this to advertise or to actually enact it?
We can just go ahead and enact it.
Okay, then I make a motion that we approve resolution 975.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agreement, we have one agreement, agreement 554. It's for a municipal recycling grant, and we get to accept that grant, which is wonderful because then we get to buy a new leaf vac. So which we need, people would miss it. And let me just get that open here. The grant is in the amount of $109,697, and that will go towards a roughly $122,000 purchase. So another successful grant award. Any questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve agreement number 554 for the 902 municipal recycling grant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're into our council members forum. We'll go with subcommittee report on water and wastewater. Ken.
Hey, thank you, Shane, and good evening, everyone. We have one item of business tonight, and we have the Infomark team here, and I think Nate's going to come up and probably share a few highlights for what's been going on at the water treatment plant and the wastewater plant. Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Let's see, both plants were fully operational for the month of June, had no compliance issues. As stated, the rebate accounts, we were 10,000 over budget this month. That raises the cap so far to $74,743.74 at the end of June. We did, part of that was with the biosolids dryer, when that control panel went down, that was about 4,200. It actually total was 5,200, but we had budgeted 1,000. But that hit this month, and then we had process tank blower number one, or actually, I
think it was blower number 3, not blower number 1, the VFD, there was a control issue. That was a variable frequencies drive, so it allows the motor to speed up and speed down, slow down. Pretty sure that was a 2010 model, so it was from the upgrade. It wound up dying, and we got that purchase through the authority, paid for that purchase. Let's see, mainly the only other thing I had, quarterly calibrations were completed at the wastewater plant. And oh shucks, we did had to replace fluoride chemical feed pump at the water plant. It was an older unit and the housing had cracked. That was about, other than usual maintenance, pretty much it. Yep, and then I have the drought contingency plan. So about a week or 2 ago, we were notified that state is in a drought warning currently. And part of that is, okay, everybody review your drought contingency plan. If it's older than 3 years, update it, bring it up, and anything changes that you may need to do. Ours was mainly just contact information, updating, and then just verifying that the stage 1, 2, and 3 drought levels, so different well levels that we have we're still meeting them, and knock on wood, the borough has a very steady water supply, and we haven't seen much of a decrease in our well levels through this dry period. But that has been updated, and then we have to submit that back to the DEP. And I think we're gonna put it on the website. And that was about it.
Just one question, looks like the team has been working hard on the implementation of SCADA, and we're almost there. What's going to get us over the top to get us to 100%?
So we're planning this week to get one of the loss ahead units in place. Of course, when we asked, how do you do it? Nobody seemed to quite know how to tell us how to do it. So we went off of different projects that we already operate and how they have their loss ahead sensors put in place. And so we should have one in place by the end of this week. And then that way we can get Instralogic back to program that into the SCADA. We can kind of watch it, make sure everything's good, and we'll get the other 2 in hopefully by the end of August.
Thank you, Nate. Any other questions for Nate and the team? Mike and Nate, we appreciate you coming. We know you guys are working hard to get some things under control that are out of your control. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being focused and providing the services and drinking water and sewage removal. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Shane, I'd like to go ahead and move to approve the June Infomark report for the water plant and the wastewater treatment facility.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ken. Subcommittee report on streets and traffic. Chris.
We have 3 items tonight. The first is an application from Debbie Pegg and Court Ewing to host the National Night Out on East 4th Avenue on August 1st from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. The neighborhood gathering, sharing food and beverages to celebrate our local police and neighbors. Chief, you've got a special note here. Invite the on-duty officers to stop by and yourself with all the other. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the application for the 4th Avenue National Night Out.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Second application is for the West End Annual Block Party to be held on September 9th from 5 p.m. till 9 p.m. Again, this is their annual neighborhood block party. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the application for the West Avenue Annual Block Party.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And the last item is for the Lititz Craft Beer Fest to be held on September 23rd from 3 o'clock till 7 o'clock. 6, thank you. Thank you very much. This is the annual beer fest, and it will be held at Tate again. Same basically as 2021 and 2022, but just one day from 3 to 6. So Like to make a motion that we accept the application for the Craft Beer Fest.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have to.
Thank you, Chris. On to our subcommittee report on finances. Ken?
Thank you, Shane. Hey, tonight we got 3 items of business to share with everybody tonight. And so I'm gonna start out with the mid-year report, and I'm gonna change positions here as Rob gets the PowerPoint open. And I would ask that anybody on the right side of the room that wants to move over to the left side of the room and view the presentation, now's the time to do it.
So we have 3 items to discuss, and one is this mid-year report. It's something new. It's a new report that we've created in the Finance Committee that we've never done before, but it was an attempt to bring to the community how is the budget doing to managing their budget for 2023. So what we're going to see tonight is some numbers brought together. It's our year-to-date actuals and our year-to-date budget for revenue and for expenses, and we're going to compare them. We're going to dig into them a little bit. So this is just for the general fund, and the numbers were run through June 30th of this year. Okay, so they stopped at June 30th. So that's where we're looking. That's the window. Next slide, please. The first slide is just our general revenue for the general fund revenue. So our budget for this year called for $7,920,411. That's the total budget that we had planned on in our revenue gathering. As of June 30th, we had collected over 4.8 million, and that's well above the budget of 3.9. So the difference there is 902,000. That's the delta. So I think it would beg the question, where is this extra revenue coming from? And so we're going to show you. Next slide, please. So there's 5 areas that we experienced revenue that exceeded the budget plan, and we're going to go through each one. The first one is the realty transfer tax. This is the tax that the borough charges for when property changes hands. And guess what? We have had a few minor ones, and we had one big one, and that was Johnson & Johnson. That happened in like the first quarter of the year. And it's basically put us in a position where we have a gain of $158,000 in that budget line. The next area is interest earnings. And this is one that we can control because we can go out to the market and look. And I would like to call out our staff that saw that we were only getting 1% in some of our funds. And so Rob and Kristen went out to Effort National Bank and looked at how we could convert some of our traditional accounts, getting only 1%, and get them to a sweep account, and we got 3.75. So that $10,929, that's active work, trying to make our money work for us so we can put it back into the community. The third one there is street opening permits. That's driven by UGI. And they're active and they're opening up our streets, and that's a revenue line for us. So that is a gain of 11,843. Health insurance rebate. Our borough participates in a group insurance health plan, and so they're involved with many different municipalities that combine together to form this plan. And it saves money as being part of that group. But let me tell you something. They had a great year last year where their claims were reduced, and so there's a rebate coming to the whole consortium of that's in this plan. Our portion is $187,000 rebate that came back to the borough for some good health practices for that group and a rebate. And then finally, building permits. I found this to be interesting because I like to know what's going on in the community. So what's driving building permits? And you might be interested to know that solar installations has caught the radar of our team, and just home renovations. And so that's increased the number of applications and also the revenue that we're getting. And that's right around 17,536. So all of those numbers were taken just with the through June 30th. And you can see some of those things we control and some of them we don't. We just happen to be in a year that they're coming our way. Let's go to the next slide.
So another source of revenue that I like to call out on is where our staff goes out into the community or into the world and finds alternative sources of funding to fund specific projects. And so last month, we got to witness the announcement of the Lancaster County ARPA Award that came to the Lititz Borough. And this is where we received $865,000, a grant. And then we have the privilege to collaborate with Warwick Township, and we're going to work on some I&I over on the Lititz interceptor section, Lititz Run interceptor. We're also going to do some storm or no, restoration of the stream bank, and then I think it's a manhole replacement. So there's three sort of components, and we're working with our neighbors with this money to help fund these projects, and that's great. This is only, there's a lot of awards that we have, a lot of grants that we have won this year. I'm only reporting the ones that we actually have gotten the money. You know, we saw the check and everything, and it's in the bank. But there are some coming, and that's exciting. So an example of that would be what we just heard, and that is we won the Leaf Vac grant. And so I'm going to just turn around. I thought it was 180,000. I just heard 109. Do we know? Okay, we got 109. Okay, so you're hearing it hot off the press. That money is coming, and we're going to use it to fund a new vehicle, and that's going to help brighten the lives of our residents who love that leaf removal service, and also it's going to help our stormwater program, because it's going to keep leaves out of the stormwater drains and help them last a lot longer. So that's a great application of grant writing. There's more coming, so stay tuned later this year. We'll be happy to report. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's pivot. Let's look at expenses. And in this particular case, expenses that were recorded as of June 30th are trailing. The actual numbers are trailing the budget. So that's really great, but it's not, because that's just the date. Those expenses that have fallen in since June 30th, and it's really close to where the budget is. It's just where they fell. So our budget calls for an expense total budget of $7,901,921, and we're going to probably need all of that to make sure that we provide the services that is needed by this community. So next slide, please. So with that said, as we look into the next 6 months, we believe that our expenses will meet or maybe exceed the budget plan. So where is that coming from? And we can, we're looking at what we've experienced and what we know. Salaries are the big area that are expected to exceed the budget plan. So let me give you a little more detail. We actually have a talented team here, and one of our neighbors has approached some of our members and tried to hire them away. And this happened back in April, and we responded with a counteroffer, though, which is a higher level of compensation for this individual. At the same time, we needed to compensate the other folks in that department to be fair. So that has raised our salaries after the budget was approved. So that's happening, but we believe in the team that we have, and we want to retain them and support them. What we're doing is finding ways to maybe save money. And one of the things that you can do to help save money in the current year is defer projects. So one of the projects that was deferred was the replacement of the HVAC for this building. So every night I come in with fingers crossed that you guys are comfortable, but it's long past replacement and it's due. But we're trying to defer that and defer those expenses. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so over in the water, sewer, and stormwater funds, those are supported by user fees. And this year, what we're looking at is we always want to make sure we have the resources to support the two plants that we have. We have a 4 million gallon per day sewer facility, and we have a 3 million gallon per day water treatment plant. Those are big. So we want to always make sure we have the resources to repair them and to keep them functioning every day of the year. So we have initiated a rate study. We do that every 5 years, and this is the year to do it. And so we will be reporting on those results in August to the community. As reported, several months now, we've been experiencing higher chemical prices. to treat our sewage and to treat our drinking water. And we are looking for ways to always save. And the best way that Rob and his team have done that is looking at projects that can be deferred. So he is closely working with Infomark. What are the ones that we can move? Can we delay so that we can keep our expenses down and try to make our budget? Next slide, please. So in summary, at this midpoint of the year, we are reporting that our revenue is ahead of schedule, but we also are expecting that we'll need the revenue to meet our budget expenses. But our team is working very hard to manage that, and we've highlighted a few examples as we go through the balance of the year. Now, before we go to questions and before I move on, I want to just share with the community the next slide, and that is the 2024 budget preparation timeline. And so I think I can provide a little more detail to the team here. So we're planning on having our first drafts of the 2024 budget from department heads of the Lititz Borough and Infomark due on September 1st. Then the Finance Committee will review that first draft on September 29th. And then we'll have the month of October to continue to work on that, refine that. One of the actions that we take during October is present the sewer and the water plant budget over to Warwick Township so they can review it, ask us questions, challenge us, and then they put it into their budget. And then we come to a public meeting on November 14th, where we'll talk about the budget line by line. And then November 19th, we hope to have a budget that we can all approve. So that's the report for this evening. Shane, if I could I just give the audience a chance for one or two questions and keep moving? Folks, any questions that I can offer for you or answer for you? Hi, Dave. You want to come up?
First, I want to thank Ken and Rob. I met with them in April, and you guys have done a great job with this information. It was never provided in the past, so it's a great help. So that's a positive step forward from my viewpoint. My only hope would be that as you monitor the expenses going forward in the revenue, that you can do something to lower the tax increase of 63% last year. That last meeting we had about discussion about keeping the Lititz affordable for housing, the 63% increase is certainly not making that happen. So I appreciate the information. It was great to hear that. And if we could try to monitor the expenses best we can and maybe try to reduce the taxes. I know it's not usually happens, but it was 63% can bring it down a little bit, maybe. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Anybody else? Okay, I think it's still me. I have some good news to share. So earlier in the year, we announced that Trout CPA had decided to stop auditing government entities. They decided to streamline their business, and so we lost them as a partner. And so we've been well treated for about 11 years, I think, by that team. Close to that, right, guys?
At least.
At least. So we decided that we needed to get a new auditor in place. And so Rob sprang into action and got some announcements out there. We did get some great help from Trout on recommendations. We also got some recommendations from other municipalities. And so we had a great list of candidates to choose from. So that was a big help. And so that process started in late April. At the end, we got 4 candidates that we thought were worthy. Shane, I want to tell you, we saw some talented CPA firms that had deep municipal experience. They had long client lists. They had tremendous years of experience in a multi-state area. We saw teams that could converse well, that can relate well to people. The accounting language could be easily transmitted. We saw folks that had experience in grant auditing and single audits. So these are all things that we're doing now, and we need those skill sets to make sure that we can move forward with our municipality. So we had interviews, and we had to narrow it down. So
we think we have a good candidate. And I guess before we move any further, I have several team members that were involved, and if anybody else would like to share what our thoughts are, how we got to this point.
I think you summed it up very nicely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we do have a firm that we've identified as our number one, and that is Brown, Sheridan, Schultz, and Fritz CPA. And we chose them because of their skill set first, and the way that they could relate to our staff and help us do the auditing work. That was it. Well, I'll also tell the community that they also serve as auditor for Warwick Township. So it does make some sense as we use them as to not only work with our accounting needs, but also with Warwick Township, since we're work closely together.
Well, Ken, thank you. And to Rob and Chris as well, just a very organized process in doing this and thorough. And this is a big deal. For anybody that's kind of sat through the audit process and prep, they're here for several weeks. You work closely with them. You need to be able to trust them. They need to be able to trust you. So yeah, this was, we were definitely sad to lose Trout, but sounds like you guys have a solid selection here.
Thank you, Shane. Any other questions for us on that issue? Okay, let's see here. Where am I? I'd like to move to approve the appointment of Brown, Schultz, Sheridan, and Fritz CPAs as the Lititz Borough Auditor for fiscal year 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I do have one final bullet point here, and that is just just look at the financial statements. I would like to call out, we just recognize where we are exceeding in some of the budget lines. As we look at our revenue for the end of this month here, we're reporting a revenue of $5,054,684. And we know where some of those increases have come from. I would like to also highlight some of our expenses. Our expenses for July exceeded the revenue for July. So we're right now year to date for the expenses, we're at $4,100,919. Within these expenses, I'm pleased to share that July is a traditional month where the borough provides donations out to the community. So the Lititz Fire Company received $80,000 that goes to the equipment fund to help replace heavy equipment in the future. We have the library that's based on a per capita that was $56,206. Lititz Springs Park received $10,000. The ambulance services received $11,000, and the rec center didn't receive this money in July. They received it in April, and that was $10,000. So some good things coming out of our budget to support our community. Any questions for our financial statement? Okay, I move to approve the July 2023 financial report and pay all the invoices.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Committee on Planning and Zoning, Steve.
We've just got one small item here. It's the final escrow release for 723 South Broad Street by Dunkin' Donuts.
No, this is the one to the north.
Oh, okay.
It's the McDonald's franchise office.
Okay. The final work did they? Yeah, I was thinking it was Dunkin'.
It's actually been done for over a year, and they've supplied this as cash escrow, and so we've been holding it in our account and basically had to ask them to request it because it's been wrapped up for about a year now.
Okay. All right, so the gray building.
Yes.
Still looking for their final release of 78,000. Question? If not, I'd like to approve that we release the final escrow amount of 78,824.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Did we ask if they wanted to donate it to the?
They actually had an agreement where whenever this was closed, we had to give it back to them
Oh, okay.
and with interest. So I didn't think that was really an option.
Yeah.
But I can always follow up and ask, like,
No report from our borough engineer this evening. Report by the mayor and chief of police. Mr. Mayor.
Not much this month. This past week I attended the PA State Mayor's Convention in Lancaster City. Great learning experience, and I just have to echo Rebecca that we're very fortunate. The Lititz is really top of the line compared to some of the other stories I heard from other mayors. So that's it.
Thanks, Mayor. Chief. All right, on to our reports from our managing directors. We've got a dog law update support request. Elijah, you just want to give us a brief overview there?
sure, this was on the agenda last month and we sort of went over it. So this
I
just
missed
to,
it. Yeah.
this is just to formalize that we had a request from the Department of Agriculture to reach out to our legislatures to update the dog law. I talked with Chief Nye about it. He's supportive. And it's essentially just updating some of the funding and things. It seems pretty clean cut, but wanted to get you guys' approval before sending those letters out.
Okay. Yeah,
We need to have official action. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the support request for the dog law update. Staff writes a letter on our behalf.
So this is updating the statewide dog law with dog officers. I'd have to go back and look at the specifics because it's been a couple months since then, but because they've had this in their packets for 2 months now. I just don't remember the details offhand because it's been a couple months since we've had this, but it came from the State Department of Agriculture. And it's an update to the law, which I think is about 40 years old. And it's been a priority for the Department of Ag, specifically animal enforcement, for several years now. So they reached out to, I believe, all the boroughs and townships.
we can do
If you
whatever.
bear with me, I can bring it up and read it. Elijah, do you remember what month that was in our packets?
It came for June.
It was on June. I totally went right past it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see it here. I read it when we got it, but I don't see it here in this month's packet.
We can always defer it till next month if everyone's comfortable then.
Yeah, that's fine. If we can get it in front of us again. Anything else on your side then, Elijah?
Just the right to know request, if you want me to go over those numbers for this month.
Okay.
Total requests year to date is 81. Requests this month is 8. Total time tracking since March is for staff 26 hours, almost 27 hours. Total outside costs is $8,905.75. Most of that is legal fees. And the top 3 requesters remain the same: Linda Carson, Paradox, and Build. For the right to know this request, I would say all of them are pretty typical. They're sort of the routine ones we get every month.
Thank you. Bob?
Just a few things to add that's not included in my report from Public Works. They finished the water main project on West Marion and South Spruce Street. Roads are open, been patched, the whole 9 yards. Talked about the leaf grant. Also from Public Works, they anticipate starting another water main project on North Cedar Street. This project is much smaller in scope than the West Marion and South Spruce. Around August 21st. They're working with some of the property owners in that area to coordinate the work. And that's really, yeah, most of the time this month was audit review and the bond issuance. So happy to answer any questions you might have on the report.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
We have no new business, no unfinished business, no other business. So we're on to petitions, correspondence, and questions, and time for public comments and questions. So, Rob, if you want to put the word out on Zoom a while, anyone in the public that would like to address council, just step up to the microphone, name, address, or organization. Take it away.
Linda Carson to 26th Street. I guess there's a new agenda item to talk about right to knows every month. And I'm the top contributor toward your spending more tax money for legal fees because you come from a place of no. Okay, so when I ask for things, you say no. And then I go and go through the process. My first one, which incurred expense, was a right to know request for information regarding a borough paying over $40,000 of taxpayer money to Consultant North Group for borough manager retirement succession planning staff training that was done in secret. So you spent the money, told us about it at the end of the year. And then we wanted to know what the consultant report said, because we're the investors. We spent the money and we were told, no, you can't see it. You can't see the report because it's an inside job, but it was our money, paid for it. And Pennsylvania Office of Open Records Appeals Officer first stated the borough did not properly prepare its filing. And point B, appeals officer ruled the borough must provide the requested right to know information. He cited the Pennsylvania Supreme Court case that said communications from consultants is not exempt from disclosure under the Pennsylvania right to know law. So we won this one, got that information. And the second one is a right to know request for park consultant John Hershey's estimate of 6th Street park costs. We asked for it, we paid for it, and we were told, no, can't see it. Can't see it, you paid for it, it's our information. So we went again. Borough manager filed a false affidavit on this one, admittedly by Barley Snyder, your previous manager. She filed a false affidavit. A lawsuit was filed. Discovery ruling addressed Pennsylvania Supreme Court case regarding communications from consultants are not exempt from disclosure under Pennsylvania right to know law. Borough gave cost information after much time and dollars spent by the borough, more money to defend its case. Now we have another one ongoing. We're confident we're going to win. And that's a current lawsuit regarding the borough's alleged violations of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act. So that's the third one. You just say no, you're not transparent, you're not open, you spend our money like it's monopoly money. We're the investors. What other company would have investors spend the money? The investors say, well, what did they say? What did the consultants say? You spent, no, we're not going to tell you. We're not going to tell you. So you treat us poorly. This is the philosophy of this borough board. And so we're, election time's coming soon. Yay. So we'll talk then. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Anyone else? All right. Oh, we got to Zoom. Okay, go for it. Okay. Okay. All right. If you're going to reach out to him, great. All right. There's nothing else. I look for a motion to adjourn.
Like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for coming. See you in a month. I mean.